Welcome to the Department of Grant Compliance and Administration statewide training series, Title IV, Part A, Student Support and Academic Enrichment Program Overview. I am Lenitra Guess in the Federal Program Compliance Division at the Texas Education Agency. I am the Program Director for the Title IV, Part A program. Today's agenda, we will be discussing the Title IV Part A Program Intent and Purpose, the application schedule for the Title IV Part A program, which is the PS 3107, required consultation and stakeholders, use of funds, program evaluation, program assurances, Title IV Part A Program Guide, program and fiscal requirements, private school equitable services, compliance monitoring, and sharing some resources. The Title IV Part A, Subpart 1, program's intent and purposes are to provide all students with access to a well-rounded education opportunities, to improve school conditions for a safe and healthy student learning environment, and to improve technology for the enhancement of academic outcomes and digital literacy of all students. TEA recommends that LEAs prioritize Title IV Part A funds to immediately implement school safety improvements, including counseling and mental health programs, integration of health and safety practices into school and athletic programs, and disseminating of best practices and evaluation of program outcomes related to activities that promote student safety and violence prevention. In addition, TEA requests that LEAs prioritize increased spending on allowable school safety training and activities. LEAs can learn more about the TEA priorities through the ESSA Consolidated Application Plan Program Guidelines. A few examples of uses for school safety activities with Title IV Part A funds are school safety initiatives, counseling services, mental health programs, and health and safety practices. The Title IV statute requires public reporting on how funds made available under the program are being expended by LEAs. This data is collected through the LEA's Title IV Part A Compliance Report. This table represents the statewide use of funds for 2019-2020 in the three content areas of well-rounded education, safe and healthy students, and effective uses of technology. As you can see, most LEAs participated in the content area of safe and healthy students, which is the TEA recommended use of funds #1 priority. Second is the well-rounded education activities. And lastly, effective uses of technology. Title IV Part A, Subpart 1, PS 3107 Application Schedule. This is an example of the PS 3107 Title IV Part A Schedule, Part 1. In Section B, it lists the activities to support Title IV programs, well-rounded education opportunities, safe and healthy students, and effective use of technology. If an LEA has an allocation of $30,000 or more, it must set aside a minimum of 20% in well-rounded education and safe and healthy student activities. In addition, an LEA with an allocation of $30,000 or more must also set aside funding for the effective use of technology. In the PS 3107 Title IV Part A Schedule Part 2, as a reminder, if the LEA has an allocation of at least $30,000, it must conduct a comprehensive needs assessment with required stakeholders. In addition, LEAs must assure it is prioritizing the distribution of Title IV Part A funds. On the PS 3107 Title IV Part A Schedule, Parts C through F, the LEA must indicate assurances. One of the most important assurances is to ensure that it is supplementing and not supplanting Title IV Part A funds. In addition, the LEA assures that funds will not be used to fulfill state law, rules, and regulations, state agency licensure requirements, and local school board policies. One of the most frequently asked topics is regarding the Title IV Part A approved waivers for the 2020 through 2021 school year. TEA has received approved waivers for the following requirements for 2020-2021 school year. The comprehensive needs assessment requirement is waived for those LEAs with an allocation at $30,000 or more. The content area spending requirements of 20% for well-rounded education and 20% for safe and healthy students is waived for those LEAs with an allocation at or above $30,000. The portion of funds requirement for those districts with at least $30,000 is waived in the area of use of technology. The 15% spending limitation for technology infrastructure is waived. These waivers are only for the school year 2020-2021. Consultation and stakeholders. During the design and development of the Title IV Part A program, an LEA or consortium of LEAs must engage in consultation with stakeholders in the area served by the district. Such stakeholders must include, but are not limited to, the following: parents, students, private school officials, principals, teachers, and school leaders, specialized instructional support personnel, local government, community-based organizations, Indian tribes, charter school leaders, and others with relevant and demonstrated expertise. Use of funds guidance. Program evaluation. In the ESA Consolidated Application Title IV Part A Program Guidelines, as well as the Title IV Part A Program Guide, it lists requirements regarding the program evaluation for the Title IV program. First, an LEA must periodically evaluate effectiveness of the activities to support the program objectives and intended outcomes. An LEA must annually submit a report regarding how funds are used to meet the distribution requirements. Also, an LEA must state how the expenditures will be evaluated to measure a positive impact on student achievement. An additional program evaluation requirement for Title IV Part A funded field trips. Any Title IV Part A funds used to support educationally related field trips must include an evaluation of the field trip that actually measures the impact on student achievement. During this section of the presentation, I will share a few selected program assurances for the Title IV Part A program. LEAs must adhere to a few program-specific provisions and assurances. One is the prioritization of services. The Title IV Part A, Subpart 2, Internet Safety, and the non-smoking policy. Prioritization of services. An LEA must prioritize the distribution of funds for schools with the greatest needs, highest percentages or numbers of children, identification for comprehensive support and improvement, targeted support implementation and improvement plans, or persistently dangerous public elementary or secondary schools. Another assurance is the Internet safety. The LEA shall adhere to all requirements of the ESA Title IV Part A, Subpart 2, Section 4121 Internet Safety Statute. Below is simply a summary of the Internet safety requirements. No funds made available under Title IV Part A, Subpart 1 to an LEA for an elementary school or secondary school that does not receive services at discounted rates under the Communications Act may be used to purchase computers, access the Internet, pay for direct costs associated with accessing the Internet for such school unless the school board, LEA, or other authority with responsibility for administration of such school does the following. Number 1, the LEA must have a policy of Internet safety for minors under the Title IV Part A, Subpart 2 program. And this policy is specific to the use of computers by minors. Number 2, a policy of Internet safety that includes the operation of a technology protection measure. The second policy is referring to any use of computers without referencing minors specifically. Moving forward with SSA, LEAs will need to certify compliance through the Title IV Part A provisions and assurances annually. Remember to keep documentation on file. And thirdly is the non-smoking policy, which is an assurance that the LEA assures no person shall permit smoking within any indoor owned or leased or contracted for or utilized by a person for the provision of routine or regular kindergarten, elementary, or secondary education or library services to children. Smoking shall not be allowed within any indoor facility or portion of such a facility of a regular or routine health care or daycare or early childhood education programs. The LEA must adhere to these assurances located in the ESA Consolidated Application. And now it is time. Title IV, Part A, Program Guide. The Program Guide resource provides general program information and should not be perceived as an all-inclusive listing of all statutory requirements for the Title IV Part A program. Upon certification and submission of the ESA Consolidated Federal Grant Application, LEAs certify that they will comply with all requirements noted in statute. Please note that any sample language provided in sections of this guide are examples of what LEAs and/or campuses could use as a guide. It is not meant for an LEA to copy and paste verbatim, as LEA policies and procedures may be different than what is provided as sample language. This is the cover page for the Title IV Part A, Subpart 1, Student Support and Academic Enrichment Program Guide. This is a sample of the Title IV Part A Program Guide's table of contents. I have highlighted the required consultation and stakeholder section for our discussion. This is a selected requirement in the general program area that's listed in the Title IV Part A Program Guide. LEAs may use this list along with the state statute links to ensure it's meeting the program requirements. This is where LEAs may receive more information regarding Title IV Part A, timely and meaningful consultation with stakeholders. In addition, there are other resources and information regarding stakeholders that could provide guidance, statute references, and common frequently asked questions for LEAs during the required comprehensive needs assessment. Allowable activities and use of funds is another section in the program guide. There are 4 key questions, as you can see on the slide, when determining whether an expenditure would be allowable. Here are a few questions to ask. How is the expenditure reasonable and necessary to carry out the intent and purpose of the program? What need, as identified in the Comprehensive Needs Assessment, does the expenditure address? And how does the expenditure address this need? The LEA must be able to answer, how will the expenditure evaluate the measure of positive impact on student achievement? And how is the expenditure supplemental to other non-federal programs? Now I will share a little bit about unallowable use of funds and where it may be found. Those areas may be found in the Title IV Part A Program Guide. The Title IV Part A program must be used to supplement activities and services. Therefore, Title IV Part A funds may not be used for any activities or services which are mandated by state law, rule, regulation, the State Board of Education, or local board policy. In addition, you can see other activities listed on the slide and review the TEA Budgeting Costs Guidance Handbook for other unallowable use of funds. Continuing with unallowable use of funds, the Title IV Part A statute under General Provisions, Section 4001B and C, states that Title IV Part A programs may not be used for medical services, drug treatment, or rehabilitation that is not integrated through Title IV Part A student supports and/or referral of treatment services. In addition, it may not be used for prescriptions of controlled substances. In the ESA statute, Part F, Subpart 2, Section 8526, under Uniform Provisions, federal funds may not be used for construction, renovation, or repair of buildings. The TEA Budgeting Costs Guidance Handbook also has items listed for unallowable use of funds regarding federal programs. It does not include all unallowable costs. However, it includes a great majority of those items that are not allowable with federal program funds. I will be sharing just a few of the program and fiscal requirements. Title IV Part A funds must supplement other state and local funds that would otherwise be available for activities authorized under the program. Grant funds may not be used for the cost of activities and programs that support the purpose of Title IV Part A if it is mandated by state law or rule or local policy. Districts must review the following to ensure the Title IV Part A activities and expenses are supplemental: the Texas Education Code, the Texas Administrative Code, and district and local board policies. For more detailed information about supplement, not supplant, you may view the TEA Supplement, not Supplant Handbook. LEAs must engage in ongoing timely and meaningful consultation with stakeholders in the area served by the LEA to identify relevant evidence-based activities to carry out the goals of the program. An LEA must continue to consult with stakeholders to improve the activities it conducts under the program and coordinate with the stakeholders regarding strategies, programs, and activities. An LEA is required to have a comprehensive needs assessment. The LEA must increase opportunities and access for all students through grade 12 who are members of groups underrepresented, such as female students, minority students, English learners, children with disabilities, economically disadvantaged students, and students in rural, remote, and underserved areas. LEAs must provide a description of the funded programs and activities related to supporting a well-rounded education, safe and healthy students, the effective use of technology in schools, and the program objectives and intended outcomes of those activities. An LEA must also periodically evaluate the effectiveness of the activities carried out to support the program objectives and intended outcomes. Annually, the LEA must submit a report regarding how funds for the Title IV Part A program are being used to meet the distribution requirements above. If an LEA receives a Title IV Part A allocation greater than $30,000, it must meet set-aside requirements of 20% in both well-rounded and safe and healthy students. In addition, it must use no more than 15% in technology infrastructure purchases. Infrastructure purchases would include devices, equipment, and software applications to address readiness shortfalls, blended learning technology software and platforms, digital instructional resources, initial professional development activities, and one-time information technology purchases. Purchases for technology infrastructure may not include significant construction or the renovation of facilities. The remaining 85% of the funds for this may be used for professional development in the use of technology and data. These are important requirements an LEA must meet if it receives an allocation less than $30,000. Ongoing consultation with stakeholders, provide assurances in at least one of the content areas, prioritization in distribution of funds is required. LEAs must maintain documented evidence of how the priorities were determined. However, there is no comprehensive needs assessment required. Educational field trips, student competitions, and out-of-state travel may be funded under the following conditions. It is identified in the Comprehensive Needs Assessment, included in the Campus Improvement Plan, is allocable, reasonable, and necessary to carry out the intent and purpose of the grant program, includes an instructional activity or activities that cannot be conducted through the interactive activities in the classroom or on campus, will result in a positive impact on student achievement, includes instruction that addresses the Texas essential knowledge and skills, and includes an evaluation of the trip that measures the impact on student achievement. If an LEA plans to use grant funds for educational student travel, it will be required to complete the appropriate TEA justification form and retain the document at the local level. Travel costs to and from a specific and allowable Title IV Part A activity such as robotics competition or other nonprofit competitions related to STEM subjects are not prohibited and will be evaluated in accordance with federal and state guidance. Out-of-state costs are allowable but should be minimal. LEAs must keep and maintain documentation so that it may be provided to TEA or an independent auditor if selected for a program review. This slide gives just a few of those program requirements that I discussed earlier. In the ESSA Consolidated Application Title IV Part A Guidelines, the Title IV Part A Program Guide, and the Allowable Cost and Budgeting Guidance, there are additional requirements and information for educationally related travel. Private school equitable services. LEAs are required to comply with the uniform provisions for providing equitable services to private schools as specified in the ESSA Title VIII, Section 8501 statute. The LEA is required to provide timely and meaningful consultation with eligible private schools located within the school district. A signed consultation of affirmation form is required from all LEAs with participating private schools for Title IV Part A equitable services. The PS 3099 form is the private school equitable services schedule located in the ESSA Consolidated Application and eGrants. The PS 3099 incorporates a formula for determining private school services for Title IV programs. An LEA must submit the PS 3099 and indicate if private nonprofit schools will participate with Title IV or not. This schedule calculates participating private nonprofit schools' equitable allocations for services. All educational services or other benefits, including materials and equipment, shall be secular, neutral, and non-ideological. The LEA must ensure control of funds and title to all materials, equipment, and properties purchased, and all purchases belong to the LEA should be documented on its inventory list and labeled prior to private school use. This is a copy of the private school schedule PS 3099, Part 1. As you can see, in Part 1, Section B, there is a Title IV Part A section that has been highlighted. If there are private nonprofit schools participating, the district would select yes for Title IV. In addition, if there are participation of private schools for Title IV, the LEA would complete Section F. In Section F, they would indicate the total student enrollment in participating private schools from the ages of 5 through 17. They would also include the student enrollment in the LEA for those students ages 5 and 17 as well. This spreadsheet would give a calculated private school reservation that the private schools would use for equitable services. The LEA would indicate on the affirmation of consultation form under the private nonprofit school participation if there are eligible private schools that will be participating with the Title IV Part A program. In addition, for each grant program in which the private nonprofit school will receive services, the private nonprofit official has a consultation with the LEA to determine if timely and meaningful consultation has occurred and if the program design is equitable with respect to their eligible private school children. The affirmation of consultation form must be downloaded from the ESA reports system. It must be uploaded through the Teal ESA report system, and it is due annually on September 3rd. Compliance monitoring. Upon certification and submission of the ESA Consolidated Federal Grant application, LEAs certify that they will comply with all requirements noted in statute. All requirements can be found in the program-specific provisions and assurances posted on the TEA Grant Opportunities page. The Federal Program Compliance Monitoring consists of reviewing program objectives, monitoring allowable use of funds, and assessing the achievement of the LEA's performance and program expectations. The Federal Fiscal Monitoring Division is responsible for monitoring the expenditures of federal grant recipients to ensure federal funds are used for authorized purposes in compliance with federal statute, regulations, and the terms and conditions of federal awards. The ESA Consolidated Compliance Report is completed by LEAs annually to document that LEAs complied with the program-specific provisions and assurances in the preceding application year. LEAs are responsible for indicating the source of documentation used to establish the compliance. The documentation is to remain on file at the LEA. However, it must be readily available upon request from the Texas Education Agency for audit and/or validation monitoring purposes. The ESA Consolidation compliance report will assess specific statutory requirements. Over the past year, some of the LEAs selected for Title IV Part A random validation did not have documentation that supported all validation indicators. The most common were stakeholders omitted, such as students, parents, local government representatives, and community-based organizations. In addition, stakeholder participant roles were undefined in some of the LEA documentation, and there was a lack of comprehensive needs assessment and data that were reviewed prior to making decisions on using Title IV Part A funds for services. Not only is it a good practice for an LEA to keep documentation on file, such as dated meeting agendas, meeting notes, participant names and their identified roles, review data, etc., it is a requirement under the Title IV Part A program. Now I will share a few resources. Have you been searching for answers to a Title IV question and didn't know where to look? The statute was too long, boring, stuffy, and legalistic. You needed an answer a week ago, and you're still waiting for someone to call back with a response. Wait no longer. Now you can find answers to many Title IV Part A program-related questions in a matter of minutes. So where would you look? TEA has several resources to assist the LEAs, ESCs, consultants, private schools, and other stakeholders available at your fingertips. The Federal Program Compliance Division webpage, the Title IV Part A program webpage, the Title IV Part A program webinar, Title IV Part A program guide, Title IV Part A frequently asked questions, the ESA Consolidated Plan Application Program Guidelines, and the program-specific ESA provisions and assurances. However, if you would rather call or email TEA, we are always available to serve you. In addition, ESCs are available to provide assistance to LEAs as well. This slide shows a section of our TEA Title IV Part A webpage. Also on our website, there is the statewide Title IV Part A use of funds data by year. For 2019-2020, we have listed the content areas of well-rounded education, safe and healthy students, and effective use of technology. Within those content areas, we have listed the number of LEAs that participated with each area and the amount that the LEAs have spent across the state in those particular areas. As you can see, safe and healthy students were the #1 priority in both the 2018-2019 school year and 2019-2020 school year. For last year, we had 456 LEAs that participated in allowable activities in the area of safe and healthy students. Another resource on the Title IV Part A webpage that may be useful is the Title IV Part A Frequently Asked Question document. This document includes the most common questions asked by LEAs, private nonprofit school officials, ESCs, parents, and other stakeholders related to Title IV Part A programs. These questions asked are provided a response by TEA and, when necessary, the U.S. Department of Education Office of General Counsel. Another great resource that is available to provide documents, tools, and assistance is the Title IV Part A School Safety State Initiative. The goal of the state initiative at ESC 14 is to provide guidance and resources to schools, education service centers, and parents about Title IV Part A related programs regarding state-required school safety and mental health requirements and other state resources on related topics. The contacts for the state initiative at ESC 14 are Rod Pruitt and Nancy Gale. Later, take some time to review their website for the many Title IV related resources that are free to you. I have listed the ESA Title IV Part A statute, the USDE non-regulatory guidance, and the National Center on Safe Supportive Learning Environments that USDE provides as resources. The program contact. Here is the contact information to reach me, and I am in the Federal Program Compliance Division. You may call or send an email to esa@tea.texas.gov, and I'll be able to answer your questions. Thank you. This presentation is intended solely to provide general information and guidance to Texas ESCs, LEAs, and participating private schools, and reflects the Texas Education Agency's current understanding of statute and applicable federal guidance. The content of this presentation is subject to change as a result of further potential information and guidance covered by federal agencies with regulatory oversight of these programs. This presentation does not constitute legal advice, and entities are therefore advised to seek legal counsel regarding the information and guidance provided in this presentation before acting on such information and guidance. Thank you.